Hello, Matadors. So I wanted to show you the finished product of my kinesthetic learning foldable for vocabulary. So as a reminder, kinesthetic learning is when we learn by doing something. So that's writing, moving our hands, doing something physical that can store these new terms into our long-term memory. So if you didn't already check out the first video where I showed you how to create your foldable, then I would go ahead and do so now. So I wanted to show you guys my foldable. So as you can see, I wrote down all of the terms. I realized after recording the first one that the camera, while to me looks flipped around, will appear normal when it's actually finished. So first one is alliteration. So I went ahead and wrote down the definition of alliteration. So I wrote down alliteration is a literary device in which a series of words begin with the same sound or same consonant sound. So we had the example of seldom see, that repeating of S. We had the repetition of sounds such as W, so with worms waiting. And then repetition of the sh, SH sound, so shadows shout. These are all forms of alliteration. The next word is assonance. So I always look at the word assonance, see how it starts with the letter A? Now is a consonant or a vowel? So A is going to be a vowel. So we have our vowels, which are A, E, I, O, U. So assonance is the use of repeated vowel sounds in quick succession. So our vowels, I wrote them down on my foldable so I would remember, are A, E, I, O, and U. So some examples of assonance in our poem that we will read are distant hills, so that repetition of the I, distant hills, and then sings with fearful hills, that same repetition of the I. The next word is consonants. You may notice they have the same root. So consonants is going to start with a C. Now is C a vowel or a consonant? C is going to be a consonant. So I also went ahead and wrote down all of the consonants. So B, C, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, Z. So these are all consonants because consonants is a literary device that uses repeated consonant sounds in quick succession. So very, very, very similar to assonance, but this time it's going to be those consonant sounds instead of vowels. So for example, in the poem that we're going to read this week, we have but a bird that stalks down. We have that repetition of the consonant B. So but a bird that stalks down. That's consonants. We also have a repeated D sound, so the letter D as in dog, with trade winds. Trade winds. So this is all consonants. The next word on my list is going to be imagery. Now we worked a little bit with imagery a few units ago. Katsune, come here. Come. Okay. Sorry, my dog's being very distracting. So our next word is imagery. It's a literary device that appeals to the five senses. So when I say appeals, it hits or really links up with those five senses. So it appeals to the five senses. So example are sight, smell, taste, hear, and touch. So as you can see, I even drew little symbols to help me remember exactly what imagery is. So in our poem that we're going to read, there's a reference to orange sun rays. I don't know about you, but When I think of orange sun rays, I can clearly picture that. That appeals to my sight. So I wrote that down as an example to remember. The next word is personification. So I'm going to go ahead and flip up to personification. Ooh. So, whoa, I'm making this a little messy. I may want to staple it if I'm going to use it throughout the week, which I definitely will be doing. So personification is, this is metaphor, my bad. So, metaphor. Sorry, my friends, we're all human, we make mistakes. Metaphor is the next one. So a metaphor is a direct comparison between two things, and it does not use like or as. So a metaphor is different than a simile. We've gotten these confused in the past. A metaphor is a direct comparison that does not use like or as. So, for example, let's say that in the poem, our author is talking about the free bird. Now, in this example, a free bird is a direct comparison with white Americans. And then there's one other metaphor or direct comparison, and this is a caged bird. And in that time, it was before the civil rights era. So the caged bird represents the African American's experience. So we're going to kind of build in there, but these are just our examples so that you have a clear sense going in what's going to be happening. So in the past, we've also talked about other metaphors. I called Miss Siami a bear. I said Miss Siami is a bear. That would be an example of a metaphor because I'm directly comparing Miss Siami to a bear, meaning she's super sleepy before she gets coffee. I know you and I know this, so. Next one is personification. So I'm going to flip up. Oop, there's my definition for personification. So personification is giving human attributes or characteristics to a non-human thing. So my example was a sighing tree. So a sighing tree. Now, can a tree literally sigh? No, I haven't heard it. I mean, maybe you guys have. That's a little weird because trees are not human, so they cannot experience sorrow. They can't experience that emotion that makes them sigh. Catherine, come here. Sit down. Sit. Sit down. Good boy. Sorry, my dog is being very distracting. I don't know about y'all, but puppies can be a lot. So, anyways, let's also say maybe, I'm trying to think of other really good examples. Let's workshop this. So we have a sighing tree, maybe a weeping chair. I mean, chairs can't cry. They don't have eyes. So that's another example of personification. The last one is symbolism. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it up. Let's see what our definition for symbolism is. So symbolism is when we use a symbol, which would be objects or words, to represent ideas or concepts. So the biggest symbol that we're going to discover in our text is the caged bird. Now, the caged bird symbolizes the African Americans' imprisonment by Jim Crow laws. Now, we learned about Jim Crow laws when we read Freedom Walkers. So, these were all laws put in place that separated white Americans from African Americans and created unjust laws on the bus systems that resulted in a year-long bus boycott by our freedom walkers. So, we know that these were injustices suffered by African Americans. Catherine, stop it. Come here. Another example, as you can see, since I drew cactuses, or cacti? Yes, cacti, that's the plural. So cactus could symbolize endurance and strength because they're able to weather hot and miserable environments and endure because they are strong. So that's another example of symbolism. So I'm going to go ahead, fold all this back down, and show you once again what your foldable is going to look like. So once again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I will help you make this. I said my phone number before, but again, please feel free to text me. We can FaceTime. Once you text me, we'll set up a time, make sure it's okay with your parents, and then I can show you how to make this if you're having trouble. But yeah, I'm super excited to read these texts with y'all. This is going to be a really fun unit. I have a lot of really cool activities and virtual games that we can play. So go ahead, start on that Quizlet once you have your foldable created and just play each individual game that's across the top. Okay? Bye, you guys.